Hey everyone, thank you for tuning in today. We're going to be talking about maintaining your faith distinctives while serving in a pluralistic organization. So tune in. Thank you everyone for tuning in today. We're going to be talking about being a chaplain in a pluralistic organization. Specifically, we're going to be talking about the military and even more specifically about the Army. And what does that look like? How does a chaplain, a person with a very specific faith belief, be a chaplain for those of all faiths? And how do they serve those people? Well, today we're going to be talking about that. We're going to look at a few different things. We're going to look specifically at some Army doctrine, some Army regulations on what exactly a chaplain does and how a chaplain is expected to serve those of all faiths. And then after those, I'll share a little bit of my perspective and how I function as a chaplain for not just those of the Christian faith, which is my faith, but as a chaplain for those of all faiths. So make sure to check that out too, because I think that could be pretty helpful for some of you as well. And if you could do me a huge favor, hit that like button, share this video with someone that you think might be interested in chaplaincy, and also smash that subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you know when future videos come out. And now when it comes to chaplaincy and working in a pluralistic setting, there is a lot of fears that I've seen out there just talking to other people about what this looks like. And also there's a lot of misinformation or disinformation that you can find on the internet as well that kind of feed into these same very fears. And I think the best way to combat that disinformation, that misinformation, is to look at the actual regulations. The good news is the Army regulation spells it out fairly clearly what is expected of a chaplain when it comes to being a chaplain in a pluralistic setting. You know, I haven't looked into the Navy or the Air Force rules. Their regulations are going to be very similar to that of an Army chaplain because we all fall underneath the Department of Defense. So what I want to do is point you all to AR, which stands for Army Regulation 165-1. Now, if you want to follow along, you can download it. It's an open source document. And it talks not just about this pluralistic stuff, but it talks a lot about chaplaincy and what is expected of chaplains and how they function within the military. I'm going to put a link below on where you can find that PDF, so that way you can follow along as well. There's a few sections I just want to highlight, and on the screen below, you're going to actually see some of those highlighted sections so you can read along. But here's the first one, that chaplaincy has been part of the Army before the United States was officially the United States. The Continental Congress established chaplains as an integral part of the Army of the United States on July 29th, 1975. So chaplains have been a part of the military since the very beginning. And I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. And then we could also see that the chaplain corps itself is a product of the nation's commitment to religious freedom and its recognition that religion plays an integral role in the lives of many its soldiers. And so the chaplain corps is there because of our commitment to religious freedom. And you'll see here in a second that one of our main things as a chaplain to do is to defend the First Amendment right to the free exercise of religion. So this is where it comes in. The First Amendment of the United States Constitution prohibits the enactment of any law respecting an establishment of religion or the prohibiting the free exercise thereof. So Congress recognizes the necessity of the chaplain corps in striking a balance between the establishment and the free exercise clause. And so kind of what that means is we are there as a chaplain to make sure that commands allow the free exercise of religion and to ensure that commands do not establish a particular religion for the unit. So we kind of are there to help bring balance to the force, if you will, when it comes to religion. Now this is the other thing that's a little important. It says, in the pluralistic religious setting of the military, the chaplain corps performs or provides religious support for all soldiers and, family members and so on. And it says from all religious traditions. Now that's I think the part that scares a lot of people. I have to provide religious services for someone of a different faith tradition. I don't even recognize that faith tradition. What am I supposed to do? And there's two key words in this, and it is the performs or provides. As a Christian chaplain, I perform the religious duties of a Protestant chaplain, of a Protestant minister to Protestant Christians. Now, I don't go and perform religious services or duties for Muslims or Buddhists or atheists or anything of that nature. I perform the religious ministry for those of my faith tradition. I'm not expected to perform religious duties for those outside my faith tradition. However, I am expected to help provide for those outside my faith tradition. Now, if I have a soldier of a different religion that's within my unit, I'm expected to provide or make accessible religious support for them. A great example is if I have a Jewish soldier or let's say a Muslim soldier in my ranks. Those are not my religions, but they are soldiers that I am there to provide for their religious care. And if we have on post a chaplain that's an imam or a chaplain that's a rabbi, I would direct that soldier to that chaplain, and that chaplain would perform the religious ministerial duties to that soldier. I'm not performing a religious service for them, but I'm providing a means for them to have religious support. Similarly, if I have a Jewish soldier that's within my formation and I know that they hold to certain dietary laws, then I help them with their command to ensure that they get to have kosher meals. Or if it is a Muslim soldier, then I would help them have halal meals, or help their command recognize that Ramadan is coming up and there's certain restrictions on maybe activities that they can do, and I would help smooth that stuff over with the command and that soldier if the command doesn't understand it. And so that's how a chaplain of a different faith helps provide religious services for those outside of their tradition. Now, a little bit further down in the regulation, it says that commanders provide for the free exercise of religion through assigned chaplains, religious affairs specialists, and other religious support personnel. Now, what this means is that it's ultimately the commander's responsibility to ensure that. Now, we are there to help assist and advise the commander in those things as a chaplain. Commanders are more than happy to accommodate the First Amendment rights of their soldiers when it comes to religion. But what this sentence means is that as an assigned chaplain to a certain commander, he or she is going to look to me to make sure that all faiths are taken care of within his formation or her formation. As you can see on this sentence here, it says, as a professional military religious leader, the chaplain must have the capability to perform or provide religious support that accommodates the soldier's right to the free exercise of religion. The document keeps on ensuring the free exercise of our soldiers, which I think is really cool that it's in there, and it spells that out in multiple ways that we're either to perform or provide as a chaplain. The cool thing about this regulation is it also helps place guidelines for chaplains that may think that they don't have to do the provide aspect. It clearly states that we need to do that provision. We need to provide, and we need to perform for those of our faith tradition, but we have to provide for those other ones. So it's clearly stated. So in a way, it's kind of protecting that soldier that may have a different faith tradition than us. But the regulation also states and also protects the chaplain from a commander or from someone trying to force the chaplain to do something that's outside of their faith tradition. Let's look below. Chaplains will perform their professional military religious leader administrations in accordance with the tenets or the religious requirements of the religious organization that certifies and endorses them. So if my endorser says, I can't do this certain thing, or I must do this certain thing to be a minister for them, then I have to do that, or I have to abide by those guidelines. And so there's some protection there for chaplains. And so make sure you pick the right endorser that aligns with your own faith beliefs. In number 5, it goes on to say, chaplains will not be required to perform a religious role, such as offering a prayer, reading, dedication, or blessing in worship services, command ceremonies, or other events, if doing so would be in variance with the tenets or the practices of their religion. Chaplains will coordinate to provide for the required ministrations which they cannot personally perform. Chaplains may participate in marriage preparations and ceremonies in keeping with individual conscience and distinctive religious requirements. I think number 5 is a huge protection for those that may be a little concerned about working in a pluralistic setting. You will not be forced to perform a religious function that is outside of your religious belief, but you will be required to help provide for that soldier, to point them in the right direction so that their religious needs can be met according to their faith tradition. And the last few things I want to point out in this regulation that I think are kind of important, it says all chaplains provide for the nurture and practice of spiritual beliefs, traditions, and customs in a pluralistic environment to strengthen the religious lives of soldiers. And so I think this is important to point out that this document keeps on going back to say we affirm and we want to protect religious liberty and freedom, and that chaplains are there to ensure that takes place. You as a chaplain perform religious duties for your faith tradition, yet if there's someone that's not in your faith tradition, you provide a means for them to be able to worship in their own way. So we are there to ensure the freedom of worship, the freedom of religion for all soldiers. And I think that's something that we could all get behind. It is part of the US Constitution, something that we swear to defend. So we as chaplains have the unique role to get to be a command advisor on how to implement and safeguard constitutional rights for all soldiers. And I think that's pretty cool. And then lastly, and I think this is important because it goes back to some questions that I often get, chaplains are required by law to hold religious services for members of the command to which they are assigned when practical. So we are required by law to actually do our ministry according to our faith tradition. I think that's pretty cool. Now, I told you I would share a little bit about my personal philosophy on what that looks like in practice. But before I share that, and if you haven't done so yet, make sure to hit that like button and that subscribe button. Here is my personal philosophy. This is a philosophy that I developed back when I was a full-time Washington State Corrections chaplain before I moved to active duty. Every week we would have the chain come in, which is the bus with all of the felons that would come to our facility, and we'd have a day where we'd in-process them. And when they would come in, I would say, gentlemen, I am your chaplain, and I'm here to serve and ensure your First Amendment rights to the free exercise of religion, and to ensure that we as a facility do not establish or give preferential treatment to any one particular religion. And then I would caveat with that. I was like, now, there's one thing I want you to be clear. I am a Christian, and so I am a Christian chaplain, and I believe the Christian faith, the tenets of the Christian faith 100%. And so that means I do not believe that any other religion is true or accurate and that it's not the ultimate truth. But that doesn't mean I won't serve you just the same as I serve your fellow Christians that are in here. And I do that as a way to worship my God and a way to love you and love my neighbor as myself. And I do this because I would hope that if our roles were reversed, if you were the chaplain and I was the inmate, and you had a different faith tradition than me, that you as the chaplain would help me worship according to my faith. And so as a chaplain, that's kind of the mentality that I bring into working with those of other faiths. And I really do act that way because we do have different chaplains of different faiths and different units, and there's different soldiers of all faiths that fall underneath them, right? And I would hope that if there was a chaplain of a different faith tradition serving Christian soldiers, that they would honestly try to help and serve those Christian soldiers so that they could worship according to their faith tradition. And I want to be that same way to those of other faiths, not because I necessarily believe their faith, but because I would hope that other chaplains would do that for those of my faith, right? And I truly do believe in the free exercise of religion. So I will provide for those of a different faith, not half-heartedly, but all-heartedly, just the same way as I do for my own. And maybe, perhaps, through that relationship, there's a conversation that is established where we can talk about faiths. And if God chooses to work on someone's heart and change it, then God is sovereign and he can do that. So anyways, that's just kind of my own personal philosophy. You can adopt that if you want, but hopefully you found this video valuable. I know that I've had a lot of questions about this kind of stuff, and so I wanted to share these ideas and these thoughts with you. This video probably is going a little long, so I'm going to end it now and say thank you guys for tuning in, and make sure to check out next week. We'll have another video, and we'll be talking about something else that's related to chaplaincy, the military, or the Army. So we'll see you later. God bless, and bye.